It reminds me a lot of Otto Rank's work that Yulon, drew upon a lot in existential psychotherapy, that sort of two primal fears of living and dying, and you see this happen all the time in the therapy space, where to become someone of yourself means to sort of separate yourself from the crowd so you can build your meaning, and this is who I am and this is what I'm doing. I'm cultivating a sense of agency in my life, but I'm no longer with them and I need to be with them to feel safe in the crowd. But then also, by being just in the crowd, I don't get to, you know, cultivate my own ego. And, there's a quote that you guys wrote here. It was toward the end. I think I really, really like this. Somehow we need to fashion. I don't know which one of you wrote this particular quote, so I've just taken some of my favorites. But somehow we need to fashion worldviews that yield psychological security, like the rock, but also promote tolerance and acceptance of ambiguity, like the hard place. To me, that's wildly affirming, because I tend to see therapy as that being the ultimate goal, to find some psychological stability, almost like helping someone become an ego that likes to die over and over again. But it does put you in a tough place, I think, because there are times when I feel really excited about who I am and what I'm doing, say, speaking to you guys. But then the more I lean into my individuality, the more existentially isolated I feel, and the more wanting I am of a sort of deep, like Christian agape love, of being just bathed in unconditional love. So I wanted to bring that up, because I imagine that this is a tension that I'm sure the three of you have had to sort of grapple with throughout your years of research.
The tension between freedom and security. And I do,
Yeah.
I really like the rock hard place thing we stumbled upon when we were trying to deal with 9/11. And
Yeah.
we were about the sort of after the effects of 9/11, and stumbled upon this rock versus hard place thing. It's very simplistic, but I've always found it to be heuristically, a value in the way you're saying, as well as in the political realm of
Yeah.
looking at different worldviews and different cultures. Um, and yeah, there's no doubt that, and Becker talked about this too, sort of fitting in and sticking out, and yeah, he attributes a lot of his ideas to Otto Rank. So I think a lot of this does in fact go back to Rank.
These ideas were influenced by Becker, and Becker was influenced by lots of other people, and they were influenced by people before them. Sort of a cumulative spreading and growth. But the thing just about the rock and the hard place. One of the things I've been thinking, I don't know, I think I've talked about with both of you a little bit is, we're getting old. We're around 70 now, and I would love to be able to believe that after I die, I'm going to go to a better place. I, that doesn't seem super likely to me, but it would be great to be able to believe that,
Mm.
and that would provide a rock.
I don't think we could find a worse place though. If there's a place, it's
Well,
probably better.
I don't know. I like where I am right now. I'm sitting in my basement pretty comfortable. Um, you know, yeah. Um, well, to go anywhere, to be anywhere, to be even, that'd be great. Um, and if you can believe that, that's very comforting. That's the rock. That's the a great source of security. And not everyone's able to get there. And in the political realm, there's kind of
Let me
simple answers
argue.
to
Let me
lots of
argue with
problems.
that. I don't think
Yeah.
that's necessarily the rocks. I don't think that
Well,
has to be. I think that has to be a rock kind of conception.
doesn't have to be, but it is a tradition I grew up in,
Right. Sure.
right? And maybe the difference between Christianity and Judaism a little bit, in that, in the Christian worldview, there's a pretty, there's a definite afterlife. In my understanding, is it's different in other traditions. And I was just using it as one example. And even even in the Christian tradition, there's much more complex, layered conceptions of what happens after death, and whether heaven is literally a thing or kind of an idea. Yeah, I don't. Philosophers and theologians debate that. Um, so yeah, I was just using it as an example, and kind of a personal one. I personally really would like to think that when I stop breathing, you know, something better will happen. or at least something will happen.
At least something will happen. Yeah, good
Not
point.
something terrible though. Also, hell is a big part of the Christian tradition too, which is, you know, that's where we lose out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so anyway, I got a little sidetracked. What was I gonna? Oh, growth.
Tom, you said something
Okay.
really interesting, if I may, just quickly. Like you said that, I don't know if people can necessarily get there, get to the hard place. I think one of the things that I also see is that people are trying to get away from there too, because the religion they were born into was very oppressive, which sort of brings in another tension here, like trying to find the right amount of religion for them, in a sense.
Sure. Definitely. I'm when I'm talking about religion without taking into account the complexities and the hell it puts people through.
Mhm.
And most religions do that as well. But they also offer this promise that if you're a good boy or girl, you're gonna, something really great's gonna happen after you die, which is a really nice idea. It's you know, I wish, when I was younger, I believed that. I wish I still could.
Right.
I'm not absolutely sure it's wrong, but I kind of suspect it is. I'm
Yeah.
not really sure about anything. Um, one of the, and what Jeff was alluding to was this chapter we wrote a while back about the interplay between growth and defense. We
yeah.
call it fear versus freedom. It was in some ways inspired by George W. Bush. Um, and sort of and the rock and the hard place, sort of the idea. And it was also an attempt to integrate terror management theories with other approaches that focused
Yeah.
on growth and the expansion of the self. Self-determination theory was one variant of that in our world that we were really intrigued by. But sort of terror management in and of itself doesn't say much about growth. And this kind of gets back to one of the basic starting points, is that we're not claiming that we explain everything, and understanding the processes that promote growth and refinement and improved uh, coping and competence and so on is a really important thing. And we think that's a really important capacity that people have. The challenge is that the care management system, consisting of our worldview, our self-esteem, and our current relationships, provides us security, so that we have these processes where we take in new information and integrate them with existing structures and process and act on them and perhaps create something new, and maybe to some extent have the potential to create ourselves. The problem is that that can move us away from our security, from our existing beliefs. It might be a belief in God. It might be a belief in a particular person who is our loved one who gives us security. It might be a belief in, for a scientist, we'd all love to think that our theory is like the ultimately wonderful theory. And, sometimes data comes in that makes you say, well, maybe there's more. Maybe we need to rethink. Maybe we need to refine our thinking. But that's challenging because that involves admitting that what we have right now isn't perfect, and that opens the door to anxiety. So there's this ongoing tension between openly integrating new experiences and information. That's what's required to grow, and the security we get from our existing beliefs in our worldview, self-worth, and so on. This
Right.
ongoing tension between growth and security.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a nice segue, Sheldon. I wonder if I could bring you into this. Like to Tom's point there, can terror management theory, the pursuit of the theory and the intellectualization of the theory of death, or the denial of the death, in itself be one's own repression of their death?
Yeah, I can't remember when that was, but we've been having some reminiscence of sorts. Here we are at the end of our uh, scholarly lives, as it were, and a lot of times folks have asked me, they're like, well, you guys have been studying these matters for almost half a century. And so surely, you have acquired some kind of ethereal psychological equanimity about dying. And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm a twitching blob of biological protoplasm, just cowering under the bed, groping for a large sedative. And that's because the the enterprise of terror management theory was in large measure an intellectual one. And while it was very rewarding and at times has infused our lives with a sense of meaning and value, uh, it was still a shock to wake up one day recently and look in the mirror and think I was the guy on the cover of Jethro Tull's Aqualung. And I was like, oh,
I'm
how those 50 years go by.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. I think that's a big. I've certainly that was quite affirming to hear you say that, because I think I certainly fell in love with I read Staring at the Sun by Irvin Yalom.
Yeah, I love that one.
It's a beautiful book, and it was a pet of ours that had passed away, and I never thought I would experience grief like that. But I know that closeness is a very important variable to grief. Experience. And I didn't realize how close we were to him. He's this beautiful old dog. And we went through a massive amount of grief, Siobhan and I, my partner, for a good couple of weeks there. And funnily enough, you think it's a coincidence at the time, but I'm not sure it was, looking back on it now with, from what I've read from you guys, is that I picked up Staring at the Sun, and it really helped me. And it was a sort of bizarre paradox that I was struggling with at the time, because I was thinking, like, I'm sort of getting more into this feeling of dying and everything loving going away and all the people I love going away. And yet it's protecting me in a way. That there's that quote in existential psychotherapy where Irvin talks about, we're all alone, yes, but we're all ships on a sea, and we can see each other's light from time to time. And there's just those brief moments of contact where we go, hey, you're here too, aren't you? There's a wonderful moment in that.